Songs from the Cutting Room Floor was the album that I never planned on making. There was always an intention to release a third album, and they weren't the songs I had in mind. For the original release, I had lots of material written at the time of recording just like before. Me and Dave had teamed up with Phil Wiles to begin work on recording drum parts for a new release, round about February 2020. We finished the session and managed to get 2 or 3 song ideas recorded before the whole world shut down due to the pandemic. With loads of free time, I began writing more and trying to better my knowledge of recording. So I decided I would take a cover song and record my own rendition of it, with my thinking being at least I would have a finished product to base it on. It just so happened that the track I chose was what I heard on the radio that morning, David Bowie's Heroes. So I downloaded the drum stems and set about working on all the elements that appeared in the song. After finishing recording all the parts, I sent the track to Phil. He offered to mix the track and the results came out better than either of us had hoped for. Phil had suggested about go back and re-record some of my previous material. But me being me, I needed some convincing. But obviously the longer the pandemic went on for, the itch to be recording new material kept growing. So I thought I would take Phil's advice and try re-recording one of my older songs, and the track I chose was Opener. Obviously I wasn't wanting to totally erase or forget what I had done in the past, but hopefully improve with more experience I had in recording, and it might get a better result. So I finished recording the track, sent it to Phil, and I get a phone call back. He turned around and says to me, "This is probably one of the best sounding tracks you've done. It's got weight, it's got movement, it really is an improvement to the original." So I knew from there, Phil had been right all along. A lot of the time when I play songs live, I'll approach them totally differently to the way it was recorded, be it the way I sing it or the way I play it. For example, Maybe This Is Our Day, I play considerably different to the way Christy Rowe recorded and played it. Like I said, I didn't want to take anything away from what had been done in the past, and had no intentions of changing that. That song in particular has always been very important to me. In 2012, I had just left college and decided I was going to go backpacking around Europe. I planned to hit all the major tourist hotspots across the continent, which obviously meant spending lots of time on buses and trains. So I began writing little lyrical ideas in a notebook I had. Those notes and ideas would be the foundations of what would become Headlights at Midnight by Christy Rowe. After returning home, it was round about that time I had met Amy D. We had been going out for a while, and I began putting the ideas from that notebook from my travels to music and recording the demos on my phone. She would be the first one to hear me singing and playing something that I'd written, and was very encouraging when I mentioned that I hoped to one day make an album. And that song happened to be Maybe This Is Our Day.
Turn the light, looking for the easy way out.
Everything I have written and created since all stems from that very song, so I really can't emphasize enough how important that song is in my journey. There's obviously different versions of the song, and it has become a staple in my live set, both acoustic gigs and with the full band. Christy Rowe did what we did with the song, but the initial acoustic demo always seemed to be where the foundations of the song were. Using the original demo as a guide, I re-recorded everything to keep with the chilled out acoustic theme, but would still incorporate elements that appeared in the rendition by Christy Rowe, adding more layers with backing vocals, harmonies, and even introducing a piano to the mix to add a very special and unique take on the song. Some of the newer songs had interesting starts to them. I was going through a phase where I felt like I couldn't write anything meaningful and struggled to come up with something new. The majority of my music when I'm writing it stems around a vocal idea, a melody or a guitar part, and I began to think what would happen if I didn't have a hand in writing the foundations of a song. And for me the foundations came from the drums. So from there I found a drum loop online, contacted the owner who gave their permission for me to use their work, and then constructed the song from there. It was a very different way of working. The song, which would be titled Alone Let This Go, eventually grew into something I never thought it could be, layering different elements into a style of music that I'd never really tried before. I was also writing lyrics about feeling stuck with actually writing lyrics, and beginning to question myself whether or not I should be carrying on. Other tracks on the album I'd been playing live for a while, Jackson, Waiting, Go On, and Back Down. I pretty much re-recorded them all with a much stronger vocal delivery than previously. Originally when these songs were first released, I was still pretty new to singing, and for the most part would only do a few takes, as like the saying goes, time is money, and the whole time you're in the recording studio you're trying to get as much done as you can for your money's worth. This time though, with my little home studio setup and lots of free time, I was able to take my time and get my vocals in check and piece together a take that I was happy with. Plus, with singing these songs over the years, there was obviously familiarity with them, but singing them live you realise which parts of the song could be approached differently. Because of You was also one of those very early songs. However, believe it or not, I wrote it while I was very much still part of Christy Rowe. I actually wrote it during the writing sessions for Headlights at Midnight. I vaguely remember writing the song, but for one reason or another, it never really made it past the demo stage. I definitely don't remember taking it to the band. I just didn't think it was strong enough compared to some of the other songs we were playing at that time. It's been on the back burner for years, so it was kind of fun to bring it forward and give it a new lease of life. The lyrics and the structure I don't think changed much over the years, however the chorus certainly did. I sent Phil a rough cut of the song and he made the suggestion that parts of my vocals were just not quite hitting their mark, as the notes I wanted were just too high for me. Rather than scrap that section altogether, I tried to think of someone that I knew that sang in a much higher register than me that could complement my vocal. Then I remembered about a girl that I played a gig with in Aberdeen called Zoe Faulkner. I made contact and she agreed to help me out. I explained roughly what I was after and she very politely did. She also added a few ideas with vocal harmonies which helped the whole song pop. Another cut sent to Phil and he suggested that the song might really benefit with the addition of some violin, so I reached out to Jockey Ross, who kindly added a really great melody to the song. This song in the end became a very collaborative effort between myself and Phil, exploring ideas and trying to take an old song and give it its own identity. I think it's a great addition to the album, and I think that's where the album really shines, as it mixes some old material, some new, and different versions of previous tracks. Don't Wait, The World Is At Your Feet was the final song I wrote for this album. Trying something totally different and writing a song on a keyboard. A totally different experience for me, for sure. I used to play keyboard years ago and used to go to lessons, but after a while I gave it up. So my skills are pretty limited and I'd pretty much forgotten everything I'd learned. I bought a new keyboard and gradually began to play about with little melodies and chord progressions for potential songs. The chorus melody came about really quickly and the verses soon followed. For me, the sign of a good song is when it gets stuck in your head and no matter what you do, it just doesn't leave. The chorus for this song kept going through my head for weeks after writing it. I am pretty stubborn as to telling people what my songs are about, and 9 times out of 10, I won't. I'll blatantly refuse. But this one, if you listen very carefully, it's pretty obvious. A few months before the song came about, we welcomed our son Jack into the world. I don't know if it was because I became a dad for the first time, but my approach to this song seemed to take a much gentler approach, both lyrically and musically. Becoming a dad has changed my outlook on so much, and all those thoughts, fears and concerns appear in this song. Songs from the Cutting Room Floor was released into the world on the 19th of August 2023. I celebrated this release by performing a live in-store session at HMV in Inverness, performing songs from the album and talking a little bit about how these songs came about. It had been almost 5.5 years since the release of my last album, Anything But Silent, but within that time I definitely have grown in confidence as a songwriter. I'm now willing to take more risks and experiment with sounds, be able to take suggestions from others around me when they can hear something in a song that I maybe didn't. The difference in production between Anything But Silent and songs from the Cutting Room Floor is almost like night and day. When these songs eventually were heard, I emphasised that I never wanted to erase what I had done in the past. In time, when I listen to songs that I have recorded, I will always pick up something that I wish I had done differently. That's part and parcel of growing as an artist. I'm always going to strive to write and record a better song than the last one. That's the only way to grow. But with this release, it's ironic that in order to look to the future, I had to go into the past. I've learned so much on the journey of this album. It's taken me a while to learn to wait if something isn't quite working, and not just to say, it'll do. I have no doubt that in years to come I will listen back to these songs and hear parts that I would do differently. These songs I truly believe are some of the strongest produced songs I have released to date. And a huge thank you has to go to Phil Wiles for mixing and mastering the songs. It just sounds so much bigger than anything I could have hoped for. Even the older material, although people will have heard me play these songs at gigs many times over the years, I now understand that they could have sounded like originally. But at the end of the day, that all comes down to experience. I hope that if you were to go back through my catalogue now, you will hear that growth of someone that is finally starting to feel comfortable in what he is doing. There's a great quote by Aretha Franklin that basically sums everything up for me. Be your own artist, and always be confident in what you're doing. If you're not confident, you might as well not be doing it.